Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks. My name's Tracy, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make my new granny square. Now this one is just a scrap yarn project. There's all my odds and ends that I'm going to be using for it, and I'll show it to you. Now you can, if you want to, you can make this into a blanket. It'd make a nice blanket. But for now I'm just doing a one square scrap yarn project. So I really like the way this round part works and how it becomes a square. It's different from all the other ones that I've made, but this one I made it in these pastel shades. Then I also did a black and white one and transformed it quite a bit. It looks a lot different, and it is amazing to me how different colours can actually bring out different parts of the square. So this part here looks completely different in the black and white to how it looks in the colours. So I'm going to use the colours and show you how to do this. I'm calling it my Starburst granny square because I think I've already got a sunburst. Although it does look more like a sun, it actually reminded me of the symbol they used to use for the Telstar satellite. But so anyway, I'm going to remove all this yarn out the way and everything and tell you how to do it. But in the meantime, if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you'll be informed when there are new videos. So I'm just going to pause it for now while I get ready. Okay, so I'm starting with this lovely lemon. Now this is an absolutely lovely colour, and it's just a little odds and ends part of a ball that I haven't thrown away because I just love the colour so much, and I always knew that there'd be a little project in mind for it. So these are all DK weight, which is a 3 weight in the US, and I'm also using a 4.5mm, 4.5mm crochet hook, and I don't believe it tells me the letter, I'm sorry, but it's a 4.5 anyway, and you'll need a darning needle and a pair of scissors. Now unfortunately this part, until you get to here, does make ends that need sewing in. Once you get to here you can sort of incorporate them a little bit more, but it does make a few ends to sew, so if you're doing a large project that can be a bit of a problem. So I'm just going to get some yarn out and I'll show you how to start. So with this particular square, let's move those scissors so they don't rattle again, we have the little hole in the center to start. So I'm going to make my slip knot, and you can do that in any way that you wish. I was always taught to make a loop, go in through the back of that loop and just pull it, and there you have your slip knot. Just make it smaller, insert your hook. It's not how I do it these days, but that's how I was taught to do it. So now we're going to do 4 chain, and a chain is simply yarn over and pull through. So that's 1, yarn over, pull through, that is 2, yarn over and pull through, that's 3. My yarn seems to be caught on something. Yarn over, pull through, that's my last one. Now I'm going to make this into a small ring by inserting my hook into the very first chain, yarning over and pulling through both of them. So now we have this tiny little ring. Just need to put a bit more light on. It's a daylight, but it's quite gloomy, so see if this makes a difference. Let's turn it around, maybe a little bit. So there we are, a tiny little ring has formed. Now this will grow as we go into it. So now I'm going to chain 3. Now I always chain 2 for my stitch, which is a UK treble or a US double, but I want another chain to be the space in between my stitches. So into that center ring I'm going to do my first UK treble, which is yarn over, go into the very center of the ring, yarn over and pull up a loop. So you have 3 on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2, and then 1 chain, as I said before, to separate them. So I'm going to do that one more time, yarn over into the center, yarn over and pull up the loop, and then you have 3 there on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2, and there's my chain to separate them. So as you can see, it's now making a post, like a space. Now I'm working over this tail as I go. If that's confusing to you, you don't have to. Now we want a total of 12 of these down posts. This is the 2 chain that started. I know there was 3, but this is the 3rd one, which is my gap. So I want to do 11 of these stitches. So with these 2, that's 12. So I'm going to pause the video and I'll catch up with you when I get to the end. I'll do one more with you. So let's yarn over into the center, exactly the same space, yarn over and pull up, 3 on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2, and 1 chain to separate. So I'm going to pause it now, and when you get to the end, if you have to pull it across a little way to give yourself a little bit more room to put those in, then do, but I will catch up with you when I've done my 12th one. Okay, so I think I'm my last one. So if you in doubt, just count them. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's my 12th stitch. Now don't forget that one last chain, because otherwise it will be odd. Now you're going to go into the 2nd of our chain, which started. So there's our 1st, our 2nd, the 3rd, which is that space. So I want to go into this 2nd one, insert my hook, and do a slip stitch. So that's yarn over and pull through all of those loops. So there we go. That's how we do a slip stitch. So now I'm just going to slip stitch into here. I'll show you for why in a second. And now I'm going to end off this colour, and there is no easy join on this particular square, so I'm just going to end off that colour. I'm going to leave a nice generous towel to sew in. Our tails there'll be quite a few. So now I'm not going to join in the same spot that I've ended off. I'm going to join my yarn at a different place, but I just need to move this yarn out of the way while I do that, so just bear with me 1 second. Okay, so now I'm following this. Some of the colours are slightly different, but I'm now on this row, and this one I'm just going to join it at a different space, and I'm going to join in between one of my segments. So I'm just going to get some yarn, pull some yarn out, and I'm just, for this, because it's very there's not a great deal of stitches to obscure things, I'm just going to tie this on. It's simple, just tie that on like that. You can do a double knot, but if you secure it well enough, you won't need to. So now I'm just going to hold on to that aside, and I'm going to insert my hook and pull the yarn through, so there's a loop, and I'm going to do 1 chain just to secure that. Now into this same gap, this same space, I'm going to insert the hook, yarn over and pull up a loop. So I have 2 on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through both of those. So that's just a plain simple, in the UK we call that a double crochet, and in the US it's a single. So now I'm going to chain 4, but I'm not going to make them very loose. And then I'm going to move that tail out of the way because we don't want to work over that now. But into the next one, I'm going to do that same UK double or US single. So I'm going to insert into the big gap, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And then I'm going to chain 4, again, not baggy. I want them nice and neat. Again, into the next space and do my UK double or US single. So as you can see, you're making these kind of loops, and I'm going to do that in every single space. We're doing it into those chain spaces in between our posts, and it's exactly the same all the way around. Nice and simple. So I'll pause the video now and I'll carry on and I'll catch up with you when I get back to the last one. Okay, so I'm all the way back. Don't forget my last 4 chain, and now I'm just going to slip stitch into this first UK double or US single. Simple as that. And then I'm going to end off, just cut that yarn, and I'm going to end off by chaining 1, cinching it right down and pulling it through. So then I will just secure that tail. Once I started doing the yellow, I did work over it. It's not ideal, it is trapped there slightly, but what I'll do is I will work it down one of the posts and around this part here just to secure it so it won't get in the way. When it comes to this one, I will secure it the same sort of way, just snaking through and trying to bury it as much as I possibly can. So as you can see, as I said, it is quite endy. So I'm just going to pause the video now while I clear that yarn away and get my next one. Okay, so while I was paused, I took the chance to get rid of those tails because I thought they would get confusing for you. So you're just going to join this at any segment. So I've got my lilac colour, which is my next colour, a nice tail for sewing in, and again I'm just going to tie it on because there's no other way really with when it's lacy. So I'm going to pull up my loop again and just do my first chain. So now we're going to do a very similar thing, but we're going to make this into more of a circle than a flower. So I'm just going to insert my yarn and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. So again, the UK double crochet or US single. I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to go into the next one and do the same and chain 2 into the next one. And it doesn't matter if this pulls slightly, working into it will flatten it right out again. So that's what we're going to do all the way around. Chain 2, 1 UK double or US single into the center, chain 2 and repeat all the way to the end. Nice and simple. So I'm going to pause the video then and I'm going to go all the way around. As I said, don't worry if it starts to pucker and pull slightly, that's no problem at all. So I'll just pause it now and catch up with you once I've done those. Okay, so here's where things get slightly different. I've done my last one and I just need to bridge this gap so it is exactly the same, but I also want to finish with my space right in the center so that I can start to do this, because when I made this, I made it seamless so that you can't tell where the end is. Now this one is slightly more clumsy, so I can spot it because I slip stitched into the center. And it's this one. You can see it's slightly more bulky and I wasn't pleased with that, so I'm going to do it a different way, and this way you won't see the seam at all when it comes to these subsequent rounds. It was slightly better on this one, as you can see, so I'm going to do it this way. So what we do now is we're going to chain 1 and we're going to do something completely different to what we've done so far. We're going to yarn over, and in the top of this our very first UK double or US single, we're going to into that, put our hook into that, yarn over and pull up a loop. So we've got 3 on our hook. Now we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. So that in the UK is a half treble, in the US it's a half double. So we've done 1 chain and our half double or treble, and now we are right in the center of this segment. So now we're going to start making it into a square. So I'm going to chain 2, which gets me to the height of my UK treble, which remember in the US is a double. I know it's confusing. So yarn over, we're going to go into this space yarn over and pull up a loop. We've got 3 on our hook. We're now going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So in the UK that's a treble, and in the US a double. So we're going to do another one. So it's yarn over into the space, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So now this is going to be half of a corner, which is why I wanted it on this half. If you wanted to be kind of a perfectionist and you didn't like this part here, which you won't see when we get round, you can always go in and pull up a loop and then do the chain so that you've got it coming through. But you're not going to see that. You would if it was a different colour, but not on this. So in our next space we're going to do 3 UK trebles or US doubles. So that's 1, there's my second, and there's my third. And we're going to do that again in the next space, the next 2 chain space. See what I mean about if it puckers, you're going to be working into it, which pulls it open, just like it pulled open our little centre hole. It pulls open the stitching. So now we're working along this edge that we've done half a corner. So if I put my thumb there, we've done half of the corner, and now we've done 2 spaces. So now we're going to work a full corner, and to do that we're going to do 3 UK trebles or US doubles all together. So that's 1, the second, and 3. If I go ahead, just pause the video and catch up with me, so I know I can steam ahead sometimes. Now we're going to chain 1, and in that same space you might need to pull it across. You just do 3 more. So we're going to turn the corner by making this kind of like a little hinge. So now if we look at it, we've turned the corner, and now in the next 2 spaces we're just going to make a side, we're going to put 3, just as we have here in the next 2 spaces. So this is our first space, just pull some more yarn out, use more yarn on these treble crochets. That's a UK term, remember, it's double crochet for the US. Okay, so now you can see more clearly how we've turned that round into a square. So we've done our 2 along our side, there's our corner. We now need to do another full corner. So again, that's 3, a cluster of 3. With 1 chain, and then another cluster of 3 in that same space. So don't worry if I go ahead. Sometimes it's good just to watch and then get on and do it. So that's how, if I look now, you can see we've got 2 sides and 2 corners. So I'm going to carry on, pause the video, and I'm going to do another 3 in the next 2 spaces. There's 1 there, so that'll be my side. I'm going to do a full corner in the next space, and then 2 lots of 3, and I will meet up with you when I've done that last segment of 3, and I'll show you how we finish the corner. Okay, so I've done my last segment of 3 along that side. So now I'm going to do 3 more in this half a corner to complete the corner. Okay, so now we've got a gap. So if I was going to continue in this same colour, I would do my corner exactly the way that I did it before, but I'm going to end off and make this now into kind of a box granny. So I do my chain to make my space, and I'm just going to insert my hook into the top of my second chain. So there's the first chain that started, the second chain, and I'm just going to slip stitch into there, so it's the same space. I've got a one chain space exactly the same. I'm going to cut this yarn, and I'm going to end off exactly the same way as before. One chain, cinch it right down and pull it through, and then I'll sew that end in. I'll work over it. So now, as you can see, it's turned the circle, the flowered circle, into a square. Again, we've got 2 more ends. Now we can work over them slightly, although I'm just going to pause the video and clear this yarn away and get ready for my next one, and I'll show you how to do the join. Okay, so this is where the square differs from a traditional granny square, because in a traditional granny square you would then do your sets of 3 in between these clusters of 3, so you would go in between. So what I've done is I've done a joining row and then gone into it in exactly the same way. So each segment of 3, each cluster, is above the previous one instead of in between. So this row is done with, I'm doing a slightly darker yarn. I don't have any more of that mauve, so I'm going to use this really deep rosy pink, and this is the only row that we're going to do with this colour, so it can just be the smallest ball of yarn that you have, because even if you were doing a blanket with this, you wouldn't really use very much. So just as before, I'm going to start at a different space than I have my previous tail, and I'm just going to join in the center of a corner, and I'm going to join it exactly the same way as I have before, just by tying it in. Don't always do this join, it just depends on what I'm making. So now we're going to do this join-in row, and so I started at a corner for a reason. So I'm just going to drop that one. I'm going to work over it a slight amount. I won't be able to do very much. So I'm going to do what I did before. I'm going to insert my hook, pull up my loop, and do my chain to secure it there. Now this particular corner, we're going to do a UK double, 3 chain, and a UK double. Remember, that's single crochet in the US. So we're going to insert our hook into that middle of the corner, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both. We're going to chain 3. We're going to go back in the same space and do another one. So we've got 2 on our hook, yarn over and pull through both of them. So what we've done is make this loop in our corner, and that's what we're going to do in each of our corners. And along our sides, we're going to put our hook back in. I'll just drop the tail now. We're going to chain 2 and then do a same stitch, a UK double or US single, in between our granny segments. So chain 2, and again in between our cluster of granny segments, and again chain 2 in between the next one. We chain 2 again. Don't worry if it pulls, because if you're tighter, it shouldn't do, it's the same stitch count, but if it pulls, the working into it will loosen it. So we're back at a corner, so we're going to do 1, 3 chain, whoops, and then into the same stitch do another, back to the sides, chain 2 in between our clusters, chain 2, and again in between the cluster. So that is how we're going to carry on. We're going to do our corners and our sides. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to go all the way round, and I'll catch up with you once we get back to the start again. If you're not sure what to do, just rewind that little bit and recap, but it's quite simple. Make sure that you do both in the corners with the 3 chain and just one in between each of our granny segments. Okay, so I've got all the way around. I'm going to do my last 2 chain, then I'm just going to slip stitch into this very first UK double US single that we made, end off that colour by snipping, and the same as before, just 1 chain, cinch it down and pull through. So that is all we're going to do with that colour. And I just need to clear this yarn out of the way, so just bear with me a second while I get that and bring the next one. Okay, so now we're on this row, which I have done with this nice shade of blue, but I'm going to try and substitute for this green because I've not mislaid it exactly, but as I said, they were all just oddments, and so I'm not sure if I have any more of that, and I'm hoping this is enough of the green. I think it looks as if it would be, but I'm just going to pull out some yarn and show you how to do this one. So we're now going on to, this is our joining row, we're now on this one. So I'm going to join just at a corner. Again, I'm going to choose a different corner from this end, and I'm going to just join it exactly the same way as before. I've tried sort of joining as I go by not ending off, but it really doesn't look very nice with the joins, so I just decided to do this. So I'm just going to join it exactly the same way as I have all the others. Now in our corner, we're back to this row in a way. It's just going in a slightly different place. So now we are going to do half a corner just as we did before. So I'm going to cinch that down, I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to do in the same space, and I'm going to work over the last bit of this tail. I'm going to insert and just do 2 more. This is slightly thicker yarn. It's all supposed to be 3-weight DK, but sometimes it comes up thicker than others. So there we are, we've got half a corner, and we're going back to working into each of these segments here and doing our side. So whereas we're just going to be putting them in above the ones on the previous row. So I know this one was half a corner, but it's now just a segment of 3 that we put in there. So we're going to do that all the way along our side, exactly the same as before, with our UK trebles or US doubles. No chains between them. The only chain that we do is in between the corner. But for now, we're just doing our segments or clusters, whichever you'd prefer to call them. And we're going into the last chain spaces that we made. So this is the last of the side, and then we've got the little bump that we made in the corner. So I've gone all the way along the side, following the line of these, and now we've got this corner that we've made. And in this center space, I'm going to do a full corner, so that's 3 UK trebles or US doubles, just as before, with 1 chain and then another 3 in the same space. Now we've turned the corner, and we're going to go in each one of the segments along the side and do our cluster of 3, just as same as before, all the way to the next corner. And I'll stop in a second and just show you what that looks like. So as you can see, there's our half a corner, and we're now following exactly. You could just repeat that colour if you wanted to, but I chose to do them all separate colours because it's easier to see when you're showing it. But of course you can play with this in any colourway that you want. Just the world's your oyster, really. Just going to pull out some more yarn, which I'm standing on. Pull out a bit more, and I'll just show you one more corner, and this time I'll work over the tail, which is the beauty of doing these segments, like the proper granny square chunky. I shall work over this tail. So there's my space I'm going to go into, and hold on to that tail, and I'm going to do my 3. Why is my yarn stuck? Caught it on the wheel of my chair. There we are. So there we are. That's 2, and there's the 3rd one. 1 chain and another 3 into the same space, just to turn that corner. And I'll stop and show you what it looks like for the whole side and the corner and this side. So I'm going to carry on all the way around. I'm going to go in each, I'm going to ignore that tail there so that it doesn't get in the way. I'm going to go in each of these with our cluster of 3. You can see what's beneath it. Then when we get to the corner, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to do my 3, 1 chain and my 3, and I'll catch up with you when we get back to the other half of our corner. Okay, so I'm almost back. Just got the other half of this corner to do. So, sorry, the little thing that holds my yarn decided to go on strike there. Stops it from going under my arm and getting caught up. So I'm just doing my last 3. Now this one is my last of this colour. So I'm going to just end off the same way as before with 1 chain going into, there's our first chain, ignore this bit here, first chain there, second chain there, just insert, pull my yarn through both. I'm going to just snip off, chain 1, cinch it down and pull it through. You can do a change of colour on this one, but I decided to end off because it is a completely different colour and it's a totally different type of round. Now I'm just going to attach, and I'm going to end this off by going in each and every stitch. You don't have to end there. You can just carry on doing your whichever colour you've chosen for your joining rows. You can just carry on and just make this bigger and bigger and bigger if you wish, or you can just end off and make squares and join them. So I'm just going to pause the video while I clear away that yarn and get my last one in and carry on and show you the end. Okay, so it's taken shape. Now what we're going to be doing is this row here, as I said, or if you wanted it larger, you just carry on repeating those 2 rows. So I'm going to edge this one in white, just as I did the other pastel one, and that means just trying to find the end of the yarn. It's easier said than done sometimes. And I'm just going to join it anywhere. Now if you wanted to, you could have just joined the colour here, but I don't like visible joins, and sometimes that does look a bit visible, so I'm just going to join it here as I have done. Whoops, sorry about that. This is meant to be a stabilizing gimbal, so we'll see how it fared against that, shall we? I bet it didn't fare very well. Anyway, sorry about that, just caught it as I turned. So just getting my white yarn, that's what did it, and I'm going to join that exactly the same way as I have been joining all of the yarn, and I'm going to do this the same way as before with half a corner, and that way it's invisible. So I'm going to pull that loop through, and my chain to secure, 2 chain. That first one has no height to it, so it's not making a difference, and I'm going to do the other half of my corner, or sorry, the half of my corner. Got a little bit of split yarn there, so do it again. Okay, so now I'm going to go in each one of these stitches, and the first one gets a little hidden, but just pull that aside so you can get to it. And so we'll make sure that we're going to go in each one all the way along, every single one individually, as we would if we were doing just rows. I'm working over that tail as I go, just trapping it in there. And what I do is I work over the tail and to almost the end, and then the last bit I just usually sew back in on itself. So just carry on. Getting a bit hot now, but as yet the hook isn't squeaking, so we're fine. So I'm going to leave that mount there just so I can sew back in on itself and get rid of the end, because otherwise if you just work over it only, it will work its way out and it will then poke through, and that is one thing you definitely don't want, is lots of little ends poking through, especially after washing. If you wash something, now I always wash mine in a laundry bag so that it doesn't have too much disruption, but at the same time the ends will still poke through if you haven't secured them well. So I'm talking as I'm doing this, just going along this edge. Now it's getting a size, it does take a little time to go all the way along. So that's the last one. Now we're at the corner. So as you can see, I've just got half a corner, one in every single one along my side. I'm going to work over this tail once I get round there, so I'm going to do a whole corner now, which is my 3, just as before, 1 chain and then another 3, and now I've got this little knot to go over. Now, because that was the join, you just need to make sure that you go over it. It looks a little bit different, so you can count them though. This is 1, 2, so there's that little funny looking hole. Just need to make sure you go in that, because that is the first one, and there is the second, and there is the third one in that little cluster. So that's all I'm going to do, is go all the way along. And in my corners, I'm doing my 3, 1 chain and 3 in the same space, and just 1 stitch in every single one. And when you get to do this corner, don't forget you may have to pull it aside slightly to see this stitch here, because as you do a corner, that starts to get a little bit buried. But just make sure you go in all of them, because otherwise when you join it, if you're going to sew them together or crochet them together, you'll find you don't have the same amount of stitches, which then can cause you some problems. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to go all the way along, do this corner, all the way along to this corner and all the way along, and when we get back here I'll pick up again with you just to show you the last bit. Okay, so I've gone all the way along. I just need to finish that last part of the corner, which I'm going to do with my 3 UK trebles or US double crochets. Might need to just pull that across to get that all in. So now this is the very last row. You just finish with 1 chain and then going, remember this one doesn't count, it's these 2. So there's your first, second. So if you wanted to, you could go in to these 2. This isn't a very pointed hook, so I'm not sure that I'll get through that very easily. There we are. Helped with the fingernail. And then just cut this, do 1 chain, cinch it down, pull it through, and then all we've got to do is hide the tails. So with this one, like I said, as long as you you can use just scrap yarn and make a scrap yarn blanket if you wanted to, just a way of making up all your different scraps. So that way I find it's easier to edge in the same colour, and then it's easier to attach them should you want to. But there is an invisible join. If you wanted to make them all different colours, you could attach with an invisible join, and I'll do a separate tutorial to show you how to do that. So that's all then. That's my Starburst granny square. Hope you like it. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, bye bye for now.